on innovation in climate finance, MRV, and data management using digital technologies. And we have here Wes Geisenberger from HBAR Foundation, who will be introducing the session and run of the show. So Wes, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Nitin. And I appreciate everyone coming. Can y'all hear me just by thumbs up? Can y'all hear me? Okay, fantastic. So today we have a great session for the next hour, and I just want to thank team at the Global Innovation Hub for hosting us. As part of some of the work that we've done over the last year plus now, we've been spending a lot of time thinking about how we digitize and open source methodologies. And in our collaboration, we've had the great honor and pleasure of working with the team at the Secretariat to help an implementation we've done in digitizing open source methodologies using a tool called the Hedera Guardian. The team, in collaboration with Swirlds Labs, Envision Blockchain, and the Secretariat, have put these methodologies together based on the CDM methodologies that can be used in a multitude of ways, both at registries in a digitized fashion, but also in implementations like Article 6.2. So to share a little more about the perspective of the collaboration, I'd like to invite Alex Paris up to say a few words in the collaboration, and Daniel Norkin to share the demonstration afterwards of the outcome of this collaboration, and maybe share thoughts on what comes next before we get into a panel on some of the opportunities we have in Web3, as well as what we see as the year in review and going forward. Alex, you want to come say a couple words?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Paris. I'm part of the methodologies team of the UNFCCC Secretariat. Yes, we've been thinking about digitalization of methodology for many years. So this was something that we have started, I think, back in 2012. And this collaboration, we started this year with Hedera and HBAR. So under the clean development mechanism of the CDM, we have over 300 methodologies for developing projects. And we chose 13 methodologies of those to start, to be a pilot. And we are very happy that today we are showcasing this pilot, and they are part of the Guardian. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the floor is back to you to showcase our pilot.
Thank you, Alex. And I want to say a special thank you to the extended team at the Secretariat for all the hard work going into this. So next up, I'd like to introduce Daniel Norkin, who's going to show a demonstration of some of that work, share a few of the outcomes, and talk through the importance and relevance of this to the industry, and maybe how to get started with some of the outcomes, which are all open source and usable by the overall team. Daniel?
Thank you. All right. So far, I've presented on like small screens with a laptop. I don't know how the demo is going to show over here, but let's see. All right, so just to kind of kick this off, can everyone hear me? Perfect. All right, thank you. I'm Dan Norkin, one of the co-founders here with Envision Blockchain. And we're going to demonstrate something here today. And it might seem like it's just technology. But the truth is, what we're doing here is we're taking things even a step further. We're going to demonstrate some of these core foundations of trying to bring trust back into the voluntary carbon market because of all the things that have been happening over the course of time. So really we're talking about is a whole re-envisioning of the frameworks of which legitimacy and trust is really gained. And I'm not sure, like we can build open source technology, but I can't work this clicker. There we go. All right, so just a super quick plug about us. Like I said, I'm one of the co-founders at Envision Blockchain. We are a custom application development organization. We opened up in the early part of 2018, building Web3 applications. So we help companies out with use case analysis, proof of concept development, scaled deployments. We are the builders and maintainers of the Guardian, We partnered together with Swirls Labs and HBAR Foundation back in the early part of 2020, and we released the first version of the open source Guardian in October 2021. So it's been a really, really great journey. I just want to say big shout out to the Envision Blockchain team, our partners, the open source community, everyone that has helped out with building out this application, and also the roadmap. So I know that my time is limited over here, but just keep in mind, I'm going to go through these slides super quickly. We're here to show the solutions for fragmented reporting and verification, data integrity concerns, high verification costs, lack of real-time data. And the Guardian really aims at achieving all of this. We provide, again, digital efficiency. You're going to see how we've taken 400-page methodologies and we've digitized them, making it easier for project participants, project developers to be able to interact with these digital methodologies. How data integrity is really established through the choice of using the Hedera hash graph, which underscores the need for transparency, integrity, and trust. And on top of that, there's tokenization. So we're taking these carbon offsets, carbon credits that have been issued as nothing more than just PDFs, and now we're able to provide data behind every single offset in the form of a token. So essentially, every token tells a story of the origin, where it came from, where it's going, where the money's flowing. Everything is out there in the open with, of course, we have a very specific focus on keeping confidentiality and privacy at the same time. So I'm going to go through all of this super quickly. I am going to show you a couple things here in the demo. If you want to get onboarded to the Managed Guardian service, which is our hosted version of the open source, feel free to contact me through Telegram, WhatsApp, LinkedIn. You can take a picture of this. You can scan it later. You can scan it now. We're here for the rest of the day. So, of course, there's benefits for standard registries and registry administrators, project participants, VVBs. I'm going to just keep going through because I know that we're short for time again. So here, the whole point is that we've been working on the roadmap since the early part of 2021. Now what we're doing is we are announcing, and we've been doing demos here for the past couple weeks, announcing brand new ways to enhance this platform. So again, thank you so much for the UNFCCC Secretariat for working together with us and supporting this on weekly meetings and being able to help kind of bring these ideas with their real life, work and support. So, of course, we understand that there could be situations where project participants and project developers don't know which methodology they need to go and interact with. They know the activities that they're doing, but they're not sure exactly what they need to fulfill. So for that, we understand that there was a need to provide AI search and guided search features. So what you're gonna see in this demo is an integrated with ChatGPT. Project participants can say, well, I know what my activities are. I know I'm trying to do something with Cookstove, what methodology, for example, and they can use natural language to search for the list of all the methodologies that exist out there. Same thing with guided search. They can just select the specific filters. Project data comparison is a really interesting feature that we brought into the Guardian because, for example, how can you prove double counting when you have many projects that are happening at the same time? You may need to compare what happens, when it happens, what location it happens, and what's the metadata behind that. So again, when you have something that's a digital asset and you have the whole provenance that is behind it, you're now able to bring that to the forefront and search and compare. And we're going to show you how that's introduced. And obviously, together with all the features that we had in the Guardian previously, with the new features that we're introducing over here, we're better aligning ourselves with Article 6.2 with boosting transparency, standardizing reporting, and aiding cross-border projects. So here's going to be a little bit of an intro onto the demo that we're going to showcase. So here's a case study that we work together with the UNFCCC Secretariat. So everyone knows that the CDM has enabled the standards to evolve from a common base of original methodologies. The challenge is how can we take this and transition what is a traditional methodology, it's complex, and streamline it to a digital-first approach. This enhances MRV activities for project developers and participants and so on. So this platform, as a solution, will act as a bridge between project developers and the digital UNFCCC CDM library. Again, ensuring the seamless search, what we just mentioned, data processing, and efficient issuance through the use of tokenization. So the conclusion is, again, the UNFCCC library digitalization is about creating an ecosystem that encourages collaboration, innovation, and efficiency. In addition to just providing the technology, of course, is we've also digitized. Right now, you can go into Hedera, the github.com/hashgraph/guardian. There's a methodology library there with many of the digital methodologies that are open sourced, 15 of which are from the CDM library. So here's going to be the demo scenario. There's one project developer that's working on 2 different projects across the world. In India and Madagascar, 2 ongoing projects aim to enhance clean cooking practices among vulnerable communities. These initiatives introduce improved cook stoves to households and families below the poverty level, targeting the mitigation of indoor air pollution and health risks. So by utilizing the AMS2G methodology within the CDM, both projects quantify emission reductions resulting from the shift of traditional to modern stoves. This transition not only reduces greenhouse gas emissions, black carbon, and fuel wood consumption, but also contributes to preventing forest degradation, thereby promoting environmental preservation. So that's the business behind the demo. Let's see how this is going to work. We have to hit the play button. It works. Okay. So here. So I'm gonna narrate what's happening over here behind. All right, so here we're looking at the Managed Guardian service. Again, this is the hosted version of the open source version of the Guardian. Okay, so we have to create a bunch of accounts. We're gonna create 3 different accounts in this demo. One account is a standard registry, the other account is a VVB, the other account is a project developer. Okay, so they're going through the setup right now. They're inputting some of their keys, and we have key management services as part of this. What you're seeing right here is the establishment of a company profile. This is a really important concept. So some of the technology behind Hedera Hashgraph is that they have something called Hedera Topics. It's kind of like a feed that you can subscribe to. It's like a place where you can store information and you can look it up if you know what topic to look up. Every standard registry has to go through a company profile, and then they send that message to a Hedera topic. All standard registries are uniformly found within this Hedera topic, thereby you can search up like a registry, if you will, of all the standard registries. This is an easy way to start to see who's involved, what tokens they're providing, what methodologies they're involved with, so on and so forth. And as you can see, we're using a user interface over here for those that are involved with kind of, the technical side of technology. Of course, there's APIs as well as the user interface, so you can build on top of this. We've took the liberty of not showing you how we're developing the methodologies. It takes quite a bit of time. However, what we're doing is we're importing the policy files. When I'm going to say policy, what I mean that's a coded version of a methodology. That's what we mean when we say digital methodology. In our world over here in the Guardian world, we call them policies. So now we're importing them and we're interacting with the Web3 technology very simply without even knowing that we're interacting with it. We're extracting all of that to make it easy. So we're importing the policy files, we're creating Hedera topics, and every policy methodology gets its own topic. It's easily searchable. And you could see right over here and on the other side that we have different pieces of metadata. So for example, this is the piece of the metadata that you can set, and when you set it, that's what kind of helps out the guided search and the AI methodologies to be able to be found. So again, we can use ChatGPT with the natural language inputs and use that metadata to kind of understand what are the methodologies that we need to be looking for. As I said, we have digitized 15 different of the CDM policies. We're just going to be importing a couple here because there's a couple features that we want to be able to show. One of the benefits that we're going to showcase where you can find that within the Guardian is once digital methodologies have been created, you now have the ability to do things that you were never able to do before. For example, how can you compare one methodology from another one when it's in a PDF format? You're just looking for specific words, right, at that point. So over here, what you're able to do is see the differences in the metadata, the differences in the structure, the differences in approvals, the differences in the roles. Everything is very easily be able to be brought up to the forefront, and you're able to now provide analysis on an entirely new level. Okay, so I think this is the third one. Okay, so we're gonna go through this importing of the policy file. Again, we're importing schemas every time that we import a policy file. We import tokens. We import all the attributes and artifacts that exist within that policy file. It's really interesting too, since we're in an open source world, we're in a blockchain world, a web3 world, a hashgraph world, we can take these policies that have already been published and you can take them and bring them into your own standard registry instance. So you can kind of pick and choose from the best that already exist and kind of be very flexible and dynamic together with it. All right, so now, remember I was telling you about the policy comparison? So basically, here's how it would be, is you would select one policy, and you can select another policy, and you can multi-select more policies, and you can now run them side by side. In the interest of time, we're gonna move on to schemas. Schemas are the data structures of the parameters and the inputs of the MRV data. Everything from project information, the PDD information, baseline emissions, monitoring reports, calculations, everything is covered within here. We're able to provide encryption on top of it so that not everything is seen out in the open within the Web3 world. We're able to integrate together with the Global Blockchain Business Council's property set that they have with the digital MRV specification version 2. And as you can see that there's a whole array of different types of schema types that are available for standard registry to use. Everything from GeoJSON to strings to integers to emails. Validation is able to be put at every different step of that input. Okay, so now we're going to publish it. This is everything that you can do from the standard registry administrator side, right? So we're basically taking care of that entire digital environmental asset lifecycle from that administrator side. From the issuance, we didn't show you the retirement, but that's also done from there too. Now we're publishing the policy. Once we publish the policy, it now becomes visible through the AI search. It becomes visible through the guided search, and most importantly, it becomes visible for project participants and project developers to be able to find it and interact with it. At the core of the Guardian is the policy workflow engine. And you could see over here, it looks like a BPM tool, if you will. It's a low code, no code editor, which allows you to stack these little Lego blocks together and create the entire workflow. So again, instead of looking at a 400-page PDF document, you have a coded version that allows the whole thing to work through the policy workflow engine. All right, so now we're just showing you a view of the tokens. Again, the tokens are a very important aspect of this entire infrastructure. Okay, we're logging out of that. Now we're logging into the project developer screen. We saved everyone the grief of watching us go through that all over again. We created a VVB account. We're going through that as well. Okay, so now what we're doing is now we're gonna log back in as a project developer. We're gonna search for policies. And again, remember we're doing a cook stove policy. So we're gonna type in, is there a policy for energy efficiency? Question mark. It goes through. You can register for the project right there. It's using ChatGPT again to be able to find that. Should you not find what you're looking for, you can also look through the guided search, which allows you to find that particular sectoral scope or scale of the project that you're looking for, so on and so forth. And you can register for the project. Now, this is going to go really fast. This is at 20x right now. but this is basically all the schema fields and everything that needs to be filled out from the MRV perspective to be able to interact with that particular policy. So we're going super quick. We're going through that. But again, this is, I don't remember if this is either the project in India or the project in Madagascar, but it's one of them, of course. Okay, so we're going through the whole thing. Now we're logging in as the standard registry. You can see over here, this is UNFCCC, for example. They can view all the information. They can approve it. They can reject it. They can send messages back and forth in a secure channel to be able to communicate what's going on. They approved it. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're adding a monitoring report. Okay. What's interesting about this, and I'm going to get through the little intricacies as you could watch. Imagine you are a project participant that has been working with a methodology for a long, long time. You understand it like the back of your hand. All of a sudden you get a client that says, I want to do this project. It's an entire new methodology, but you don't want to turn the business down. So you're going to have to spend time and resources and energy and money to be able to learn this all over again. When you digitize the methodology, you literally don't have to spend all that time to go to market. All you have to do is know what methodology you need to do. You have to understand what are the parameters, what are the inputs. Obviously, that there's a lot more business that goes into it, but this accelerates project participants' speed to market for sure. Okay, so now we just went through the whole process. We're minting the tokens, and now you're about to see really, the whole meat and potatoes of what this is all about. The guts of it is something called the trust chain. We're taking everything into account. Right here, as you can see, remember I said that every token tells a story. You can see in these kind of Netflix types cards, who did what, when they did it, how they did it, what's the data behind it, and everything like that. So I know that we're getting that we're coming up to time over here, but this is basically the whole thing with the trust chain. And this is, we're gonna go through a second one. You're free to cut it, but what you can do is you can kind of understand now. We're going to see the trust chain of the second project. And obviously now that both of these have been in existence, we're able to leverage the project comparison now and compare both of these projects in India and Madagascar, for example, to be able to see what are the fields that are similar and what are fields that are different. So I know that we're at time. You're free to either keep it going or cut it off. Okay. We're almost done, I promise. I have about maybe 2 minutes left. So here, as you can see, again, we're going through the approval process of the second project. We're validating it. Or we're approving it actually over here. We're adding the report. All right, so again, we can take a look at all the fields. We're going to go ahead and provide the report. We're still in as the project developer. We're assigning the VVB again. The VVB now is going to be able to look at it, verify it. Last but not least, we go back in as the standard registry. The standard registry now can continue with that workflow, process it, mint the tokens again. I believe there was somewhere around 10 to 20,000 tokens that were minted on the first project. This second project, there's around 65,000 tokens that were just minted right now. Again, each of them representing the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, how. You can see all that. And last but not least, after this, we're going to show you a screen of the project comparison, where you can take a look at all the different projects, compare them by sectoral scope, compare them by methodology, compare them by project title. As you can see right now, we're going to be selecting a bunch of sectoral scopes. We're going to apply the filter. When we're done the filter, again, You can select as many methodologies as you want. For this example, we're going to select the 2 that we just created. There we go, number 1 and number 2. We're going to open the project comparison, and this is basically what we mean, that all of the data that's out there that hasn't been encrypted is going to be able to be available to be seen and compare. When it's green, it's the same. When it's white, it means that it's different, and you can take a look at all the different fields from locations to data and make the analysis that needs to be. So that's the benefits that we can have with using all these different technologies and advancing towards these next-gen registry systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that amazing demo. I want to invite the next panel. No, I'm good. Our panel of speakers to come up and join me on the stage. We have Miles, Stella, and Raphael. I don't know which seat we want to take. I'll pick here. It's great to get like live demos and to see this technology in action. There you go. And so with this panel, what we really want to talk about is, what this past year has looked like with regards to Web3 and the carbon markets and just how much the space has developed, and also taking a little look forward. It's going to be very like quick, high level, just for time's sake, but I think we'll get a lot of valuable knowledge and insights from the panel. So I want to start just kind of broad. If you guys could just very quickly, like lightning, introduce yourselves, your projects, and then I have a question for the whole panel and individual questions for all of you. My name is Caitlin. I'm with Protocol Labs. We develop open source technologies for data, so the Interplanetary File System, Filecoin, and I specifically work on the Filecoin Green team. So I get to work with a lot of awesome projects like you guys and many others in the Web3 space. So I'll pass it to you first, Miles.
Wonderful, thank you. My name is Miles Austin. I'm the CEO of Hyphen Global. We're a climate tech company based in Basel, Switzerland. So what we're primarily focused in is the precision of emissions measurement, reporting, and verification of greenhouse gas emissions through real-time atmospheric monitoring. So we'll get into a little bit more of what that actually means and how that applies to the wonderful demo that you just saw, but I'll keep it brief for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen, for the invitation. My name is Raphael Dery. I'm in charge of Olcott.io, which is the digital arm of project developer Olcott that has been on the carbon market since 2009.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stella, Chief Product Officer of Carbon-Base. And so Carbon-Base is a Hong Kong-based data-driven technology company. And we used to offer carbon emission consultancy services for enterprises like Diageo, Schneider, and Mercedes-Benz. And for the past whole year, we've been working on Asia's first digital carbon registry, and that can leverage the IoT sensors and also blockchain technology to amplify the efficacy of data. So we combine a registry front-end and blockchain back-end to make the data can be transmitted to the Hedera through Guardian. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Such snappy intros. I love that. It makes my job very easy. So I guess to start kind of broad, I would love to get your guys' thoughts and insights on just the space over the last year. What has developed and changed when it comes to Web3 technologies, and specifically, in the voluntary carbon market space at this intersection of climate and Web3. What are the things that you've seen that are exciting or the things that are concerning? I just want to pick your guys' brains about just the kind of general topic. I'd love to start with you, Stella.
Sure. I think all we know is that the carbon market relies heavily on the economic development of the whole world. And I've talked to a lot of product developers, BVBs, credit buyers, and they found that the demand side of the carbon market is actually downsizing. And they were concerned about that. And we try to figure out together by collaborating with different kind of stakeholders. And one is that because for the past 5-10 years, I think what we focus is actually nature-based carbon projects. But right now, the credit buyers, especially big enterprises or individuals, are more concerned about how to use like the more transparent data, how to improve the data integrity to make sure that the carbon credits they buy is actually contributed to the projects they supported. So we've actually collaborating with some product developers who actually distributed their improved cook stoves in Africa and Southeast Asia. So their requirement is to pass the data like the temperature of the cook stove, so that they would know like when the household are using the cook stove for how long to calculate the carbon emission reductions more precisely. So we collaborate with them and find the IoT companies together to install a non-removable and high temperature resistant sensors inside of the cook stove, and then transmit the data to a gateway because there is limited like the internet access of the rural areas, and then the local project management team can collect that data from the gateway and transmit it to the application database more frequently, like once a week or several times a month. And then they can use that data to visualize and also collect the data to compare the data change over time in order to have the credit buyers to know, okay, so this is the product data in 2 years ago and this is now, so there's a comparison. You can actually see the data is changing. So that's kind of like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I mean, that's kind of the promise of Web3 and blockchain technologies, is that granularity and transparency and all of those things. That's really amazing. Rafael?
Right. So in our case, we come from the legacy world of the carbon markets where innovation was pretty limited, mostly like updates of Microsoft Excel was the biggest differentiator. But like obviously innovation disrupted the market drastically in 2022 when tokenization entered in the market and really make a big splash and became a front scene. But in all the things that it brought, it was mostly like driven on the trading side. There was false belief that somehow you could actually influence the market, the projects on the ground through mechanisms that were not yet fully defined. Now, for us, it was our first brush with Web3. And our main question was like, how can we make the project better at the origination stage? And there were only very few answers. Obviously, DeFi was much more interesting than origination. So we came across many different initiatives that most of them were like focused onto like helping us to finance projects at early stages, which were not yet applicable for different reasons. But we came across actually the EdgeBar Foundation and the Edera ecosystem, where the approach was actually aligned with like what we believed was the right way to go, and on top of that was bringing a lot of innovation, especially with digitalization of the methodologies, which is the right approach. It can bring like a lot of efficiency all the way from origination to issuance, and after that what happened on trading and price discovery. If we're able to like get like better prices at the exit so that it can go and flow back to the community, the project, to make them better, then we have a real use case of impact, and we have really an innovation that is bringing like benefits all across the value chain. Now, in stage of like demand, the market has always been like quite tilted towards like the biggest emitters. Now we see like new entrants in the demand side that are looking to decarbonize their supply chain, and of course like monitoring of like all these different elements is a topic that is on the desk of every board to make sure that they can do it like in a better way, and they can also streamline it more efficiently. So we are looking at like how from the origination to the issuance we can bring better projects, but also like at ways that we can attach different like systems that are like compatible within like the different ecosystem of different organizations, so that we can bring like effective solutions to fight against climate change.
Yeah, amazing. And I want to, I mean, you mentioned that Alcott is kind of like a legacy institution. You guys have moved into the blockchain space, and I want to touch more on that in a minute. But first, Miles, I want to ask you the same question, just like over the last year, what have you seen in this blockchain space that's good, bad, just like what are your thoughts in general? And then I also want to talk to you kind of about the last demo and MRV, but I'll let you answer the question first.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin. I would say, over the last year, one of the things that we've really seen is there's been a lot of ups and downs. But I think most importantly that the industry has really realized that, okay, we can't just take carbon credits and put them on a blockchain and it's solved everything. It's much more granular than that. We need to dig into the details around the data, but not just the data. There's always a lot of emphasis on more and more accurate data. But I think it's really important to understand, where is this data coming from? Is this primary direct data? Is this modeled data? What is actually happening to the data, which falls right into the methodologies. So I always like to say that, technically we could have the world's best data, but if we're applying the wrong methodologies around that data, have we actually done the data and the project a disservice? What are the ways that we can improve methodologies supported by real-time data to match impact claims with reality? And I think that we've now seen not just the market highlighting the need for that to really restore more integrity in the markets, but we're seeing really innovative solutions come to the market, primarily like the demo you've just seen from the HBAR Foundation and their Hedera Guardian, which really, in my opinion, really lays the foundation to enable this while ensuring that there's a very healthy and inclusive environment to be able to work with small organizations, with large organizations, and tailor it to the different needs. So I think it's we're still early in this process, but it's really exciting to see that the foundation has been laid for the innovation to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering if you could just kind of like go more into your, like, you guys as MRV people and your work with Guardian, like how those things kind of just are married to each other, and
Yep,
what that looks like for you guys.
Absolutely. So in the beginning of my intro, it's, when I say atmospheric monitoring, sometimes it's not terminology that everyone is familiar with. And so with the measuring, reporting, and verification that we're doing at Hyphen, is we saw the need to be able to complement activity-based approaches and remote sensing with more ground-based truth. So when we go into a specific site, what we do is we're actually setting up a monitoring network around a given area with various gas analyzers mounted at different heights. And what that allows us to do is to, for specific sites, being able to measure the parts per million and parts per billion of greenhouse gas concentrations and the fluxes. And what those fluxes do is it's the fluctuations. So if it's in a forest, it's literally the way the forest is breathing. What is the actual sequestration taking place? If it's another dynamic or diverse ecosystem outside of forestry, it allows you to be able to quantify the exact metric tons that are either being sequestrated or acting as a reduction or removal or even a source. So it gives you that robust ground-based information, which is then falls very nicely into the Guardian system, which has been really a match made in heaven for us, where all of this raw information as it is captured from these IoT devices is able to be logged on Hedera. In parallel, as we do modeling and that we're actually computing the flux values, it allows you to be able to have the transparent side-by-side raw information with the modeled information to ensure that you have full transparency, traceability, and the easy availability to be able to audit all of this information. We then accompany all of that through the policy schema, which allows you to be able to take your more traditional approaches of remote sensing, feasibility studies, the additionality, maybe even adding in some biodiversity metrics, packaging this all together and making that available on the Hedera system, while ensuring that we create more of a circular and open economy when it comes to the data, and provide this information to other people in the ecosystem so they can tailor this ground-based truth to improve their own AI models and other systems that are more leaning on the remote sensing. So it complements a lot, and we're focused more on the bottom-up approach.
Amazing. This leads me into my next question for you, Raphael. Just, coming from a legacy company into this Web3 space, and just like, what was that transition like? And just more of like the why behind that. I have a lot of questions, but I guess we could just start with those.
The why is quite efficient. We can really scale up massively. Thanks to the HBAR Foundation, of which we are a recipient of a grant, we could actually dedicate a whole team to build on the Guardian and to deploy capabilities that are adapted to this line of work. One of the limitations of the current system is that the methodologies actually are restricting the amount of data that you collect. Everything that you're going to put into a project design document, you're going to be accountable for. Whereas like you have a lot of like side elements that are bringing information that can be valuable to different stakeholders that you have to omit, and that after that are like siloed somewhere else. We want to be able also to like store this data somewhere so that they can be leveraged for like different initiatives. Now is also like building on an ecosystem that comes with like bringing like more like auditability and trust chain across the system, and collaborating with like different initiatives such as like the cutting edge of my neighbor on the right, Miles, and adapt it to methodologies that are like rigid, but can be evolved through like new versions. So we need to be able to translate what's happening on the ground to the screen. And we need to make that like relevant for the different people that are like interacting with this system. We also need to make sure that like this is user friendly. Yeah. I mean, Danielle, what you show is easy for you, for a few of us, but like definitely it's a step, it's a major step up for like a lot of people. And like in the community of a project developer, it is still like something on which like we need to find the ways for them to attach to that, so that like they can make their work like easier, snappier, yep. And that they can like resolve one of the biggest problems that we're all facing is that we have a lot of projects in the pipeline, and we have just a limited amount of talent. So all this like assembly of like different ecosystems that can cooperate and work together in the right direction makes it like a very fruitful environment. And we don't have the time to wait for like 2 years to develop a project as we want, as we used to be. Now what we want is definitely to be able to stand up projects in a matter of months to make sure that we can scale them up.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we're getting close on time here, so I'm gonna have to end this like way earlier than I'd like to. But I really appreciate that you brought up, you know, that with a lot of Web3 technologies, it's like easy for us and it's intuitive for us, but there's still that challenge of project developers, and even project developers at different stages of, you know, expertise and knowledge. So having to make sure that we're always thinking of that is very valuable. So I guess to kind of close out the panel, Stella, I want to talk to you about Carbon-Base, and you guys are doing a lot of work in Asia and working with project developers. And I really want to know, like, what is next for you guys? What does the next year look like? Like at COP next year, what do you hope to kind of achieve, and what's in the game plan for you guys?
Sure. So I want to talk a little bit more about our registry we're building. Yep. So right now it's actually on a beta version that we are onboarding project developers, VVBs, and credit buyers to try it out and give us feedback. And so basically the registry frontend is functioning as a generic website, navigating different stakeholders to do what they want, like submit projects, audit projects, and purchase credits. And all the data will be transmitted to Hedera through Guardian. And in the process of product auditing, so we tap into data-driven MRV, like IoT sensors, to collect and monitor data in real time. And also, we are trying to integrate third-party applications within Hedera ecosystem, like Hashpack and Blade wallets. So those are non-custodial wallets, you know, to make the registry well accepted by the community. And I really agree with what Raphael just said. So he mentioned about like how to boost the carbon market a little bit more. So I think like to some extent, DeFi is not a bad option. I know a lot of people criticize that, okay, DeFi is a little bit more like speculation or something like that, but to some extent it indeed improved the liquidity of the market. So I've given one interesting example. So the Cookstove project that I just mentioned is that, so sometimes the product developer would tell me that some local people would, you know, some well-structured cook stove might be sold secretly, and sometimes they just might not tend to use the cook stove because they want to cook big meal using large pots that don't fit the cook stove. So it actually decrease the supply side of the carbon credits. And in order to, you know, change this kind of situation, we think that like perhaps we can incentivize people to do something more. For example, like the cook stove users could get some tangible benefits, like some rewards from the crypto stuff, and then they can, you know, use the cook stove more. And then I think Hedera is actually has a big demand side for the carbon market because it has a governance council members from big like purchaser from the enterprises. So I think in the next COP, I really want that we are able to, onboard so many partners and onboard so many project developers, especially in Asia. Actually, 70% of the carbon offset projects are based in Asia because we're based in Hong Kong. So we have the advantage of onboarding them more conveniently. So before that, I think that we're gonna, try to onboard more of them, collect the feedback, and try to issue carbon credits more, in the blockchain, especially in Hedera blockchain. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, we are at time. I could obviously continue talking about this stuff all day, but thank you to my amazing panelists. I cannot wait to see the progress that is made at this time next year. So thank you guys. I would like to now pass it to my colleague, Alan Ransel, who's going to be talking about OpRad, which is our new venture and end-to-end solution for proving your claims to the world. So thank you to our panelists. Round of applause.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have some slides? Let's see. Oh, yeah, go for it. All right. Hi, my name is Alan, and I'm going to try to get through this very quickly because I want to leave time for you to hear about the Global Carbon Reward from Dr. Delton Chen after this. As Caitlin said, OpRad is a platform for proving your claims to the world that we're launching in Q1 of next year. And where this comes into carbon markets especially is in establishing end-to-end traceability for carbon markets. And so we are from Protocol Labs. Protocol Labs has built a bunch of projects in the Web3 space. Among them are Filecoin and IPFS. Filecoin can store very large amounts of data very cheaply. And the important thing with IPFS is that it addresses data based on what that data is instead of where that data is. So if you want to have control over your data, you need to you need to know not just what server that data is on, right? When you enter a URL into a web browser that says, go to this place and give me the data that is at this place. But if someone changed that data, you can't detect that. If they aren't hosting the data at that place anymore, you have no control over that, right? So we strongly believe and have built an entire suite of Web3 tools to allow you to control your data by referencing what that data is instead of where that data is. And that's sort of the layer that underpins everything I'm about to talk about. As Filecoin Green and Protocol Labs, we have worked with a ton of different organizations in a bunch of different spaces. We've worked with orgs that are tokenizing e-waste recycling credits in Brazil. We've worked with a bunch of folks tokenizing carbon offsets. We've put CERN data up on Filecoin. Gainforest is adding traceability on top of a bunch of traditional carbon offset markets and allowing you to take different data from different sources and compare them in order to evaluate people's claims. And what we have found in working with all of these different groups is that there are several needs that are consistent across all of these different types of environmental asset projects that are not well served by existing Web3 solutions. In Web3, we have a lot of ways of verifying data, right? One of the most common ways is decentralized oracles. But these fall short when it comes to establishing what we call real-world claims, right? If you want to verify a claim about the real world, like this product is made with 100% renewable energy, having a decentralized oracle where you effectively have 100 different people vote on what the value of my power bill was last month, that doesn't make sense. So what do these, how can we solve this, right? How can we come up with general ways of establishing traceability and data provenance in a Web3 context that's useful for things like carbon markets and renewable energy markets? So recurring needs that these projects have, right? They want to be able to show the origins or the provenance of the data that they use to back these claims. They also want to be able to reproduce what happened to that data to make the claim, right? You start with satellite data or you start with data that you collect from a project, you do something, you transform that data, and a claim comes out, right? The claim might look like this project produced a certain number of tons of carbon removal. And you want to be able to reproduce those transformations so that anyone in the world can audit what you did. Another thing is you want to be able to prove your claims and publish them. You also want to be interoperable between different standards, and you want to be able to control your data. You want to be able to set rules for content use. This is what OpRed is designed to do. What is an OpRed? So an OpRed is a concept from this branch of math called category theory. The way you should think about this string diagram is that lines are data and boxes are functions or transformations. And so you read it from left to right. So data flows in from the left and it goes through these functions, these transformations, and it flows out on the right. And so an OpRed specifically is a structure where you can plug these boxes into each other. So you can take one box and you can substitute another box if the types match. And what this is useful for in things like carbon offsets or real world claims is saying, okay, on one side, we have data coming in, right? Again, data collected from an individual project. On the other side, we have claims coming out, right? A certain amount of carbon that is offset or sequestered by this project. And we want to be able to audit that, right? We want to be able to show people everything, where the data came from, what transformations happened to it, who wrote those transformations and who provided that data, and then who executed all of that. So that's what OpRed is designed to allow you to do. So wouldn't it be great if we had a tool that worked this way, right? Where data comes in on the left, it comes out on the right, it goes through these boxes, and everything is modular, right? So you can take someone's claim, you can double click, you can look in that function, you can see what they did to make those claims, right? If you don't like it, you can rerun, you can change their code and rerun it and see how that affected the end result, right? And so that is one of the things that OpRed allows you to do. So data are lines, functions are these boxes here. Everything is typed, and that means you can tell the types at any point in the diagram. That's important to be able to mix and match data and code, right? So if someone else has written code that you want to use in order to do your analysis, because everything is typed, you're able to plug in your data to someone else's code. So that allows us to collaborate in ways that when we develop new methodologies, when we develop new ways of new useful data sets for doing things like looking at, say, the carbon intensity of electricity on the grid at a given point, you're able to take that data and plug that in, and people are able to reuse that data or reuse that function, reuse that analysis that you did. You can also plug this into multiple different computing backends or storage backends, and function composition allows that pipeline to be extended. So what I mean by that is that if you have a project that is producing a certain number of carbon offsets, say you want to take another step, say you want to actually use this for a claim about the carbon intensity of your product itself. As long as the types match, you can extend it, right? You can drop in more data, you can drop in more functions, and then you have end-to-end traceability from not just the carbon offset claim to your claim, but you have end-to-end traceability from the individual projects that are providing data points all the way through to your final claim. And I do want to give the floor over next to Delton, because we're running a little bit behind schedule. 2 more minutes? Okay, we can, okay. So then the other thing that this allows you to do, which is really crucial and follows directly from the basis of OpReds and category theory, is that because we have all this compute diagram laid out in a way that is compositional, we can calculate what the effects are downstream when we make a change. So an example of this is you can remove this input. That doesn't change this other line around the top, right? That is a data source that is data that is flowing through this diagram that is unaffected by removing that input on the bottom, but it does remove that input on the top, right? So because we have this rigorous mathematical model underlying how we are modeling data flow through these projects, we can do things like calculate what depends on what, very in a way that's intuitive and modular and allows people to understand, if I make a change, what could that change possibly affect? And then the last piece here, and where all this is really going, is that because everything is signed, right? You always know who provided your data, you always know who wrote your functions, you always know who executed them. What that means is that you can calculate not just what data depends on what other data, but what trust depends on what. And so if someone claims to you that this represents a carbon offset claim, right? And you should trust this claim. You can render that with your trust settings in mind, right? What that means is you can say, okay, I actually don't trust this data provider for this type of data, and then you can re-render the with your trust settings. See, that means I actually should still trust that upper line, but I actually don't trust that lower line anymore, right? Because that claim is based on data from a source that I don't trust. And so by using the math underlying what's called operads, we're proposing this model for allowing end-to-end traceability in carbon markets and environmental markets, and generalizing the tools that we have in Web3 to underpin real-world claims in a major way. And so next, I do want to turn the floor over to Dr. Delton Chen, who's going to be talking about the Global Carbon Reward. Thank you. Slides.
Is this okay? Great. Well, thank you. And before I start, I'd just like to thank the UN Global Innovation Hub for inviting me to speak today. Much appreciated. Today I'm speaking about the Global Carbon Reward Policy. It's a new international climate policy for providing climate finance at speed and scale. Polycrisis. Have you heard the word polycrisis? What it means is that we're actually facing not just a climate crisis, but it's a complex crisis comprised of political conflict, economic problems, and physical crises. Political, because we can't agree on who's going to pay for mitigation, how much fossil fuels to use. It's an economic crisis because standard policies aren't working, carbon markets aren't really working, they're not properly additional, and economically, globally, there's extreme inequality, particularly between the global north and the global south. And physically, we're facing a crisis because of positive feedbacks, tipping elements in the climate system and the earth system, which cause more impacts and risks as the planet warms. For example, we could have deadly heat waves that impact billions of people if the temperature exceeds 2 degrees of global warming. This novel, The Ministry for the Future, some of you may have heard of that novel. It might even become a film one day, but Kim Stanley Robinson did a great job of bringing this polycrisis to life in a fictional story. And he uses in the story a carbon coin and central bank policy to resolve the climate crisis. So what's interesting about this novel is that the plot, the carbon coin, is actually based on this policy. In the real policy, the instrument is actually called a carbon currency, or XCC. And the unit of account is 1 tonne of carbon dioxide equivalent strategically mitigated for 100 years. So the word strategic is very important because this policy only funds actions that are going to be additional and make a significant difference. It has a more of a top-down approach in certain ways as well as bottom-up. Carbon currency is not going to be a medium of exchange. You can't use it to buy things, and it's not a carbon credit. So you cannot use it to offset emissions. No offsetting, it reduces the risks. And the question then is, if there's no offsetting, how do we fund this carbon currency? How do you create demand? Well, the demand's created through monetary policy, and that's a picture of the Federal Reserve. The point being that central banks today do not have a mandate for directly funding climate mitigation, but this policy and the theory behind it, it argues that we need new mandates, expanded mandates for central banks to back our carbon currency proposal. So to give this some numbers, you've probably seen these sorts of charts. It's the hypothetical emissions scenario for 1.5. This is historical. And we have policies that are set in place will take us over 2.5 degrees. Pledges might take us down to 2 if they're enforced. And then the Paris compliant 1.5 is very steep, declining quickly. We would still have residual emissions, thus we would still need to remove large amounts of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere even to achieve 1.5. So you already know that. Standard economics says that we need to tax the emissions from $40 to $100 a tonne before 2030, increasing to 200 and more beyond that. The finance gap is of the order of $3 or more trillion a year to do the reductions, which are blue. And the cost of removal could easily be $1 trillion a year to remove the red. So how do we fund this transition and break through the political and economic gridlock? That's a good question. How do we do that? Does this work? Just a technical problem. Okay, sorry about that. The answer we have with this policy is to provide 3 major reward rules that provide scalable climate finance, debt-free, for cleaner energy, cleaner business, and the carbon removal. The third rule is the most straightforward. It's a fully market-based approach with an explicit price, and I'll show you the price in a moment. So we'll move our focus to rules 1 and 2. So cleaner energy, basically, with this approach, with this policy, we potentially can resolve the deadlock over fossil fuels. As you would have heard, the world's planning to extract more than double the amount of fossil fuels that's allowed for 1.5 degrees. So what we can do with a clean energy rule is actually pay to keep fossil fuels in the ground with conditions that the recipient of the reward needs to use most of that carbon reward to build out cleaner energy substitutes. That way we accelerate the transition from dirty to clean energy. Rule 2 is all about reducing demand for fossil fuels and speeding up the transition on the consumption side of energy. So rules 1 and 2 is based on flexible prices and highly strategic planning, quite top-down. Rule 3 for carbon removal, it's an explicit global price and really very market-based, bottom-up. I'm going to explain now the financial mechanism, and this should demystify how the policy works. So what happens is the world, if it agrees to the policy, would set up what's called a carbon exchange authority, a new international organization with a mandate to enforce international standards for carbon mitigation, somewhat similar to what we see today, but more universal. And it will issue service level agreements for projects to sign. If they agree to the conditions, they can earn the carbon currency. So the awardees will earn carbon currency as they do the good work. Then at the time that they want to realize the purchasing power of that carbon currency, they need to sell it into foreign exchange markets where they'll trade it for real currency. If the private demand is not sufficient, then central banks will buy up the carbon currency because they are the guarantors in the policy. And they'll simply expand the money supply and record the carbon currency as their asset. This is the floor price for our carbon currency proposal, and it's calibrated specifically to fund the minimum safe amount of carbon removal the world will need. That's to avoid a moral hazard. And it's a way of defining what the minimum value should be, the thick black line, and that thick black line will be backed by central banks via monetary policy. So the actual exchange rate will fluctuate under market forces. So that's the spot price. The main implication here is really very important and dramatic, and that is, with this approach, what's actually happening is the private sector is paying for most of the mitigation, because they're going to buy the carbon currency because it's going to appreciate in value, it's an investable asset, and so that's why we have this fluctuating spot price over many decades. When the market's saturated, then the central banks will be the buyers of last resort. So as an example, just imagine in the Congo Basin where there's planned oil and gas extraction, We need to protect those forests, the peat forests and so on. Those developing countries, they need that revenue though, so it's very difficult for them not to drill. But we can buy out the leases, lock down the fossil fuels for 100 years or more, pay them carbon currency debt-free with these service level agreements, then they will build cleaner energy assets to substitute with conditions for co-benefits for communities, ecosystems, and so on. This is the last slide. I think I just have another minute or two. So I just wanted to conclude with some opportunities for digital platforms to stay in theme with this presentation. What we're going to create with the carbon reward is actually a multi-trillion-dollar carbon market that would supersede the existing carbon markets from the point of view it will provide a long-term reliable price that's scalable. So to support it, we would need all the technologies from the Internet of Things, satellites. We need the full services for data storage, tracking, analysis, like was being discussed here today, contracts, MRV, training, certification, e-commerce, investing, accountability, and policing. So Web 2, Web 3, artificial intelligence, and extended reality would be very useful technologies to help manage the platform for doing the measurement, reporting, verification, and so on. What's unique to this policy, however, is another kind of platform that's for monitoring and reporting co-benefits and harms to communities and ecosystems. So in this policy, there's a secondary price signal that's prescribed in a way that we collect information from communities in a decentralized manner and use this to adjust the carbon rewards. That way we encourage co-benefits and good quality carbon and responsible development in a virtuous circle of decarbonisation. So that can be managed through smartphones, the internet, and using consensus models to determine subjectively how to adjust the rewards to incentivise more co-benefits and fewer harms. So thank you. I hope I was on time there.
So thank you very much. I think with this, we have come to the conclusion of this session, and our next session will start now at 3 o'clock. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.